Your Excellency, the Right Honourable Mia Mottley, Prime Minister of Barbados, all my fellow Kenyans, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, today we gather here to celebrate 56 years since that glorious day when the flag of our republic was hoisted for the very first time. Indeed, today we are honored to have the Prime Minister of Barbados, the Right Honourable Mia Mottley, na ningependa niwaulize Wakenya wenzangu, tumkaribishe kwa makofi na shangwe mgeni wetu ambaye amekuja kututembelea. Prime Minister, your acceptance to join us to celebrate our Jamhuri is a clear indication of your commitment to the promotion of Pan-Africanism and the bridges that unite the Caribbean and the continent of Africa in friendship, solidarity, and fraternity. On the 12th day of December in 1964, the people of Kenya witnessed the birth of an independent state, a culmination of decades of the struggle for independence. That indeed was an astounding feat, achieved through a shared quest to liberate our homeland, a homeland that we fought hard for until we wrestled it out of the unwilling hands of a mighty power, and we stood against what seemed insurmountable odds, but nevertheless, our forefathers prevailed. And so today, as we celebrate our sovereignty, we honor those who gave their lives so that we could live free. Those who fought in the forests and the valleys, the mountaintops and plains, those who stood their ground in Lechcore and refused to be compromised with the promises of a half-baked and empty independence. Those who guarded the young Kenya against adversaries, and indeed until today, those who stand at our borders, on our streets, and in our public offices at home and abroad, defending and advancing our sovereignty and national interest. As a nation, we shall remain grateful to our independence-era heroes for delivering a free Kenya and restoring our ability to govern ourselves and to determine our own destiny. Today, we are called upon to honor their commitment and sacrifice by being true to the ideals that they lived and died for, most especially the ideal of one Kenya, united, strong, and prosperous, with freedom and justice for all. Fellow Kenyans, at independence, Kenya was a nation of hope and potential. Today, we are gatekeepers of our liberty, and our nation is a beacon of freedom and a lighthouse that continues to shine the way for other nations. The ideals of freedom, democracy, and prosperity are helping in shaping our region and beyond. At the dawn of our republic, we stood at about 8.9 million Kenyans. Today, we are a nation of 47 million, and we, the people, remain Kenya's greatest asset and resource. Our unity and diversity, our national and social values, our status as a regional hub, as a cultural melting pot, our heritage and indeed our splendor, our unmatched reputation for being a country that provides shelter and safe harbor for those fleeing turmoil in their home countries. These ideals of our founding fathers are alive and well in today's Kenya. Kenya of today is a river that flows from the source of greatness. And this greatness is embodied in the spirit of those who went before us. That Kenya would become a country devoid of poverty, ignorance, and disease. Inspired by the ideals of the independence generation and empowered by the resolve to always be better, to be just and progressive, we are making every endeavor to return the river back to its course. We are returning the river to its course by turning every hurdle that we come across into a stepping stone, and every challenge into an opportunity, as we face every obstacle and build a bridge for a better future for all. In the years since we attained independence, Kenya continues to grow by leaps and bounds, growing from strength to strength, buoyant by a devolved structure of governance that has accelerated development across our republic. From Shimoni to Moyale, from Embu to Bungoma, from Siaya to Kiambu, from Eldoret to Voi, from Mandera to Kisii, from Wajir to Narok, all across the country, we have found shared destiny in our diversity. Brick by brick and generation by generation and administration after administration, we are building on years of steady progress to achieve national renewal and rebuild the bonds of brotherhood amongst our people by weaving a new and stronger fabric of patriotism and nationhood. And with this national endeavor, the wealth, security, democracy, and vitality of our republic will set us head and shoulders above our peers. We are returning the river to its course by fostering national unity and inclusiveness through building bridges of unity towards a better Kenya for all. Make no mistake, fellow Kenyans, in 2019, Kenya has chosen to consign to the dustbin of history partisan divides and politics that is centered on individual interests at the expense of our common good. In 2019, we have anchored our dreams and aspirations on a unity that resonates with that which existed in the independence-era generation. Kenyans today must now unite to drive the remnants of poverty, disease, illiteracy, inequality, division, and conflict from our nation. This monumental task towards sustainable development can only be achieved if we remain united, focused, and driven by the desire to always put our country first. Tuweke Kenya mbele, tuweke Kenya kwanza. My fellow Kenyans, at independence, Kenya inherited a country stripped bare by a colonizing power whose only intention was to extract. We inherited a country beset by poverty, illiteracy, poor health, and chronic underinvestment in infrastructure, as well as social amenities. We were divided along ethnic and religious differences. We were a colonial relic whose identifying marks were inequality, injustice, poverty, exploitation, and oppression. Years later, I believe we can look back with pride at certain important milestones that we have achieved and the tremendous steps that we have taken to steer our country forward. By way of returning the river to its course, my administration is vigorously implementing Kenya's economic blueprint, our Vision 2030, whose current phase, the third medium-term plan, is prioritized as the Big Four agenda. And the agenda focuses on a decent roof over many more heads at affordable costs, affordable health care for all, food and nutrition security for all Kenyans, and job creation and economic growth through manufacturing. The Big Four agenda is crafted to accelerate the realization of the overriding objective of Vision 2030, which is to transform Kenya into a newly industrializing, middle-income country, providing a higher quality of life to all her citizens by 2030 in a clean and secure environment. Fellow Kenyans, as I stated in the beginning, our most valuable asset is our human resource. But for this resource to contribute effectively to our development agenda, its health is paramount. It goes without saying, a sickly society cannot expect to realize its development potential to the full. And this is what has informed my administration in identifying universal health care as one of the pillars of our Big Four. Today, I am pleased to report that we have successfully rolled out the pilot phase of this program in the counties of Nyeri, Kisumu, Isiolo, and Machakos. To date, the program has witnessed enhanced access to essential health services with an average of 39% increase reported in the pilot counties. Lessons from that pilot, that robust primary health care system is the right vehicle to secure sustainable universal health coverage. And in this regard, we have invested quality time to prepare the full rollout of this program by the beginning of next year to cover the remaining 43 counties. And to this end, I indeed urge all our county governments and the Ministry of Health to conclude and sign the intergovernmental partnership agreement by the beginning of next year. Fellow Kenyans, we have begun the journey to fulfill our pledge on the affordable housing program. Just last week, I commissioned the first phase of the project by the United Nations Office for Project Services that will deliver 100,000 units across our country. The affordable housing program will continue to deepen and accelerate access to housing far beyond our immediate target of 2022 of building 500,000 housing units, and set Kenya on an extraordinary path as Africa's first country to substantially address housing and social amenity challenges. Fellow Kenyans, the Housing Fund was one of the entities through which the delivery of affordable housing program shall be supported. The creation of the Housing Fund was informed by the need to bridge the gap between the have and the have-nots by creating a framework through which the traditionally unbanked can access finance towards home ownership. You all know that the implementation of the Housing Fund levy as a mandatory contribution for both employees and employers has at every turn been fraught with an avalanche of legal hurdles and obstacles. But we need to soldier on with this noble program. And in this regard, and to ensure that the implementation of the program is not derailed any further, I have directed and ordered that the Ministry of the National Treasury, as well as the ministry responsible for housing, to move to Parliament for a revision of the legal requirement in respect of the Housing Fund levy to make the contribution voluntary, and this should happen with immediate effect. Fellow Kenyans, a nation that feeds itself, just like a family that feeds itself, stays healthy, stays secure, and stays united and indeed stable. We need to forge ahead to weed out the fragments of hunger in society and guarantee food and nutrition security for all. And this we must support by increased agricultural production of our major staple foods. We need to enhance earnings of our farmers, and we are going to continue to promote agriculture through structured trading by negotiating market access for our produce in international markets, and indeed restructuring our Kenya National Trading Corporation to better receive and manage farm produce. We continue to promote our produce abroad, to deepen markets, and further explore marine and aquaculture resources in consideration of the new global blue economy model. With respect to our cash crops, we are making every effort to revitalize and restore their contribution to our national life and assure the future of our coffee and tea in Kenya. We will continue to support tea farmers to enhance diversification of tea varieties, while also restructuring coffee value chains to stimulate productivity and value addition. We recognize that tea and coffee have been prime export products for Kenya since our independence. The increase in cotton production is also another key development within the agricultural sector. The revival of Rivertex and others that are following is providing a ready local market for our cotton. The manufacturing pillar of our Big Four also continues to gain momentum as we undertake bold steps in answer to my pledge. We have begun the journey to lay an additional brick to the realization of our commitment to create more opportunities for our people. Fellow Kenyans, foreign direct investment in industry are soaring, and the number of Kenyans gainfully engaged in this sector continues to grow. Indeed, in this context, I am happy to report coming week we will be launching the groundbreaking in the Naivasha Industrial Park and a major investment by a foreign investor in partnership with a local investor. Fellow Kenyans, we also note with satisfaction the safeguards that we have put in place to protect local industry and guard against dumping. These efforts are bearing fruits. And in that regard, and to further cement these gains, I continue to urge all Kenyans to buy locally made products in support of the Buy Kenya, Build Kenya initiative, as it creates employment and allows incomes to your fellow Kenyans. Ladies and gentlemen, we are continuing in our pursuit to make Kenya secure and an attractive destination for investments. I am pleased to acknowledge that Kenya's ranking in the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Index improved once again this year to position 56 amongst 190 global economies. Since I assumed office, we have improved by 80 positions globally and remain on course to becoming the top 50 countries next year. As we build that momentum to achieve the top 25 status, and this we intend to do by the middle of the next decade. Fellow Kenyans, we should be proud of our achievements, because evidently no other country has seen such a sustained and large improvement in the ease of doing business over the same period. And this positive change has been most felt by our small and medium-sized enterprises who have benefited from our culture of being an open and listening government that is attuned to the needs of enterprise. The remarkable progress in the ease of doing business has been due to our reforms in the processes of establishing businesses, issuing construction permits, acquiring electricity, as well as the ease in accessing credit, paying taxes, and trading across borders. We have also increased investment in the energy sector, embraced ICT, and sustained the war against corruption. The institutionalization of these reforms will continue to cement and secure Nairobi's place as a diplomatic hub and Kenya as a whole as the steadfast economic powerhouse in Eastern and Central Africa. There is no doubt that the pace at which our economy is growing is not fast enough to keep pace and to absorb all the graduates and young people released into the job market every year. So to accelerate economic transformation, my administration is focused on other salient factors that are holding back the potential of our enterprises, particularly with regard to taxes and tax administration, reduction of where possible, elimination of fees or charges levied by government agencies, as well as the private sector, reduction of bureaucracy, and indeed the simplification of processes in trade, access to credit, and streamlining consumer protection assurances. In order to address some of these challenges, I have ordered and directed that the National Treasury and the Kenya Revenue Authority review our tax structures, especially in relation to our small and medium businesses, so as to reduce the tax burden while fostering tax compliance. Further, as a way of reducing the compliance burden on employers, all employer contributions and deductions of NSSF, NHIF, PAYE, and NITA shall be made through a unified payroll return submitted to the Kenya Revenue Authority. In recognition, fellow Kenyans, of the fact that up to 40% of the value of commercial disputes for claims under Kenya shillings 1 million are taken up by court fees and advocates' charges, thereby making the cost of recovery prohibitively high. I have also directed that the National Treasury and the Office of the Attorney General to engage with the judiciary and formulate a framework that will anchor the waiver of court fees for commercial disputes of less than 1 million shillings, effective 1st March 2020, and further cause amendments to the advocate's remuneration order, advocate charges in such court cases more accessible to Kenyans. The repeal of the law capping banking lending interest rates introduced, and in the introduction of of groundbreaking financial products such as TAWI, which is geared towards providing affordable credit to SMEs, has already positively impacted hundreds of our small and medium-sized businesses by availing low-cost financing, despite this product only having been launched recently. In the coming months, my administration will introduce other products such as Tasha, SME Mashinani, administrative measures geared towards us in order to enable them to play their rightful role in our economic transformation agenda. In the developing world, the Last Mile Connectivity Initiative has turned electricity connection from a luxurious dream, unattainable in most Kenyan homes, to an ordinary facet of life, now enjoyed by over 75% of all Kenyan homesteads. Our children no longer strain their eyes reading under the light of candles or choking from the fumes of paraffin lamps. The vision of our fathers and mothers in villages across Kenya is now powered as those in our towns and cities, affording them equal opportunity to actively participate in national development. We are returning our river to its course through sustained investments in our education. Where once education was the preserve of a few, we now pride ourselves as a nation with one of the highest levels of literacy among our peer nations. In Africa, Kenya boasts the highest rate of primary to secondary school transition, now at 100%. When our learners sit down to acquire knowledge and to discover their full potential, they do so guided, fit for learning practices and the demands of the 21st century. Our education system has also witnessed a rapid expansion of tertiary education, both in terms of access as well as scope. And our universities, polytechnics, and vocational training institutions ensure that every Kenyan has an opportunity to further their knowledge and expertise, fueling livelihoods and enabling passions and dreams to come true. Indeed, in the medical field, we have a Kenyan doctor already, Peter Mwithera, who has extensively researched and has come up with a gel that, once applied, will prevent contact of HIV viruses and other sexually transmitted diseases. The bounty of Kenya's superlative human capital not only drives our own society and economy, but also that of other nations. Our own highly educated citizens are much sought after all over the globe. To signify the changing fortunes of our homeland, diaspora remittances grew by 10.9% from Kenya shillings 266 billion to Kenya shillings 295 billion between June of 2019 and June of 2018 and June of 2019, overtaking earnings from exports of tea and coffee as the largest source of foreign exchange. My fellow Kenyans, when we leave our homes every morning to travel to schools, our workplaces, or social centers, we now do so on a network of high-standard roads, express highways, and dual carriages. from Kibwezi to Kitui Road, from Lokicha, Lodwar, Nakadok, Mombasa kwa Jomvu, Isibania, Kisii, Ahero, our network of roads drive our economy. Where once bitumen standard roads were few and far between, now almost every corner of Kenya features extensive kilometers of top-grade roads, with others actively under construction. Plans are indeed already underway for even greater expansion, and key amongst them is East Africa's first overpass from JKIA to Westlands, an overpass that we recently inaugurated and presently under construction. This unprecedented enhancement in infrastructure is not limited to our road network. We have expanded our sea, our ports, our airports, and lake ports, and laid the standard gauge railway, ensuring a diversity in transportation that is unrivaled on our continent. Coupled with an extensive telecommunication network infrastructure that features some of the highest internet speeds anywhere in the world, a Kenyan, even in the most remote part of our country, can travel quickly and conveniently and can receive goods and services wherever they are, whenever they wish. This enabling infrastructure has made Kenya a global leader in the arena of mobile technology. We have revolutionized mobile banking, fintech, and the integration of cutting-edge technologies with our traditional economy. Thanks to technology, transactions are now majorly conducted remotely from the palm of our hands, and government services, Huduma, are requested and received on mobile devices across every corner of our country. As a result, the world has indeed come calling, and Kenya has hosted numerous global conferences and international exhibitions which have enhanced Kenya's visibility globally. In this week alone, we had over 10 heads of state and government attending the summit of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific group of countries. All across our country, transformation is taking place, and our country is intensely under construction. From the largest wind power in Africa that places Kenya as the world leader in green energy, to petroleum exploration in Turkana, that in August propelled Kenya to the list of oil exporting countries of the world, to a new port in Lamu, that is in addition to the expansion of the ports of Kilindini in Mombasa, to Isiolo's International Airport, and the numerous upgraded airstrips in numerous counties, to the rehabilitation of the port of Kisumu on the shores of Lake Victoria. As an affirmation of the progress that we have made, and in honor of our solemn and sacred duty to conserve our environment for current and future generations, in recognition of our credentials in green energy, Kenya was ranked 5th globally and 1st in Africa in the annual Bloomberg Climate Scope Index for the year 2019. Our initiatives across the country are complemented by the transformation also being undertaken by county governments across the country. And I'm pleased to note that every county in Kenya has at least one major infrastructure project designed to directly benefit Mwananchi. These infrastructure projects are creating jobs and driving primary, secondary, and ancillary businesses. They are fueling our economy and giving our growth and development greater impetus, thus creating the Kenya that our forefathers had envisioned. Our bold transformation agenda for a better Kenya initiated in April of 2013, has bridged the standards of living in rural Kenya and that in urban Kenya. The vast inequality and disparity that typified the Kenya of just a decade ago has almost entirely been eliminated. A farmer in rural Kenya has agricultural support services within easy reach, and their produce reaches markets faster through an improved transport network. Once sleeping villages and town centers, these have brought back to life due to decentralization of government services as factories spring up and once mothballed industries bounce back to life. We are a government that also cares for its people, especially our senior citizens who have attained the age of 70, and this also with our orphans, vulnerable children, and persons living with severe disability who now receive a monthly stipend from government so that they can continue to live a life of dignity. This transformation also means that life in urban Kenya no longer features the rampant crime and insecurity that was prevalent just a decade ago. We have reformed, modernized, and revitalized our police service. We have equipped it with the resources necessary to prevent, detect, and deal with crimes effectively. And we have coupled this with an extensive program of street lighting, CCTV cameras, and enhanced foot and vehicular patrols, in addition to a very successful Nyumba Kumi initiative. We continue to improve our country by improving planning and service provision while allowing your taxes to work better for you. Towards this, we conducted a successful national census this year. Soon after the rollout of Huduma Number, a unique personal identifier. Building up on this success story, we hope to be able to implement some of these in the new year. Fellow Kenyans, a nation is only as strong as its institutions. Personalities will always come and go, but institutions endure. They outlast all of us. And it is therefore my intention to ensure that we fully institutionalize our governance and administrative principles and values as laid out in our Constitution and other laws. Our civil service is the engine that drives the realization and implementation of our nation's aspirations and development agenda. All our state organs, both tiers of government, and all three arms of government are supported by dedicated and diligent public officers. Fellow Kenyans, most of our civil servants are hardworking and selfless. They are akin to the freedom fighters who braved awful conditions to wage a righteous war for independence against colonizing powers. At both national and county level, they are birthing an even better Kenya through pens, papers, computers, and a renewed commitment to duty and the fight against corruption. The rule of law, good governance, integrity, transparency, and accountability are the pillars of our constitutional democracy. They are the golden thread that is woven across the entirety of our supreme law. Their inclusion was a deliberate codification of the shared values of the people of Kenya and their common aspiration for a better, more responsive, and participatory government at both levels and across all three arms of government, all civil servants, and indeed all public servants. Therefore, this golden standard must be applied equally and consistently to all, without fear and without favor. This is not only our sacred moral duty, but also our solemn legal obligation demanded of us by the Constitution and by statute laws. Indeed, on assumption of state office or public office, the officers all become trustees of the people with a constitutional, statutory, and moral duty to administer public affairs and resources in fidelity with the law and strictly for the benefit of the people of Kenya. State and public officers are not above the law. Our constitutional order is a jealous one. It demands that state and public officers serve no other master but it. A teacher in the public service cannot have one foot in the classroom and the other in parliament. One cannot serve as a legislator at the national or county level while at the same time practicing law, whether or not for gain. In the same way, judges and magistrates cease completely any legal practice while in office. Similarly, doctors, engineers, accountants, and other professionals who take up state or public office should give up private practice and devote their full-time energies and focus on public duties. Mtu halazimishwi kufanya hii kazi, lakini ukiamua kuifanya, lazima uifanye kwa njia ya haki. Professionals who take up state and public offices should give up private practice and devote their full-time energies and focus on public duties, and without the perception that they are using state or public office as a mere platform to advance personal interests. Fellow Kenyans, is it fair, is it right for legislators who have control over funds and exercise oversight over the judiciary to appear in courts as counsel? Is it fair on the judicial officer hearing the case or other parties that one party in the case is represented by persons who can literally change the law applicable to the dispute, control the career progression of the judge or magistrate, or are able to speak with the voice of an entire arm of government? The position, fellow Kenyans, is simple. You either serve the public in the role you signed up for, or you serve the republic as a private practitioner. It is a profound conflict of interest to do both. Fellow Kenyans, the war on corruption will continue until we weed out from our midst those who abuse the privileges of their offices for personal benefit. No magistrate or judge or any other state or public office who has abused the public trust shall be allowed to hide behind the veil of autonomy or independence. So I have therefore directed the Attorney General to fast-track the submission to Cabinet for approval and transmittal to Parliament the law on conflict of interest, which has already been subjected to stakeholder consultation. Fellow Kenyans, as an affirmation of the steady progress that we are making and as a validation of our historical, tested, and proven commitment to Africa's positions and fulfillment of our obligations at the international level, Kenya has been endorsed overwhelmingly as the African Union's candidate for the non-permanent seat of the United Nations Security Council for the period 2021-2022. Kenya is ready to serve, and we commit to pursue our shared prosperity and advancement of humanity. Fellow Kenyans, over the years of our independence, our democracy has evolved tremendously. Kenya has over the years taken bold and necessary decisions required to better our democracy, our legal order, and the ability of government to serve and to deliver the Kenyan dream. Indeed, as the first elected president under the Constitution of Kenya 2010, I am pleased with how we have implemented the new Apex law. Kenya is undoubtedly better today than we were in 2010, in a large part because of the changes we ushered in through our new Constitution of Kenya. In 2019, we once again find ourselves called upon to consider further bold but necessary actions to further better our democracy and to enhance the effectiveness and inclusiveness of our government systems. Just as in 1963, we have the opportunity to create a better nation by fostering how we govern ourselves. We must not succumb to inertia or be afraid to implement change when necessary. We must not elevate partisan positions or short-term interests over the greater good. We are called upon to build bridges and to heal divisions, not because it is easy, but it is because it is who we are and because it is what we must do as Kenyans. Our independence-era heroes refused to be compromised with leadership positions while others in their numbers languished in colonial detention. They put aside narrow political glory to self in favor of Kenya's wider and enduring interests. In 2019, we are each called upon once again to put country above self, to put Kenya's enduring interests above our fears and personal aspirations. Let us for once say, Kenya kwanza, leo, kesho, na milele. Fellow Kenyans, let us return our country back on course by emulating the independence generation who sought to build a united Kenya. They had a dream of one Kenya, one people. Over the years, this fundamental platform was diminished by political balkanization, pandering to narrow divides, and succumbing to the false allure of transient political aspirations. Whereas all Kenyans have a part to play in building the Kenyan dream and bringing it to fruition, we, as Kenya's political leadership, must take the lead in this process. To do this, we must adopt a long-term view of what we hope Kenya will become in the future. And in this regard, we must remember that ancient African mantra that goes, and I quote, "A society grows great when old men plant trees in whose shade they know they shall never sit," end quote. Each of us, you and me, must make daily decisions purely driven by Kenya's wider and enduring interests. This, I believe, is not an unreasonable ask or an impossible position. We are gathered here today to celebrate men and women who did precisely that, whether in resisting invading colonial forces or confronting them once they established their rule, or building this blessed nation after we expelled our colonizer. We are their descendants, and their greatness flows in our blood, and their sacrifice forged in our bones. To return our river to course, we must live and breathe that mantra of Kenya Kwanza, Leo, Kesho, na Milele. And what is this Kenya Kwanza, Leo, Kesho, na Milele? On a daily basis. It is committing, like the independence-era generation, to doing all that is necessary for Kenya to thrive and to achieve our collective aspirations for a brighter and better tomorrow. In 2019, we are not asked to fight in the forests or to confront colonial powers. We are called upon to obey the law, to discharge our civic duty, to conserve our environment, to care for our parents and our children, to refuse to be corrupt, to be mindful of our neighbors, to bring blessings to the less fortunate, to resist negative ethnicity, tribalism, and religious divides, and everything that undermines our unity and cohesion. We are a nation called upon to be great, to be a beacon of hope for others, to be on this earth the reflection of divine providence, favor, and protection, to secure and strengthen our democracy. Now is the time to recommit ourselves and put Kenya first. And in so doing, we shall have honored the enduring legacy of the independence generation, to whom we are and shall forever be greatly indebted. May God bless you